It's look honestly, it's going a little bit better than I thought I'd feel after what happened. I could sit here and say all the things that we're all thinking. I could sit here and talk about Lucas's ridiculous mistake. I can sit here and talk about how shit our defense is and why we went 3-0. I can sit here and say, oh, it's Levy's fault for having Lucas at the club in the first place. I can sit here and say all that stuff. But we're all thinking it. So I'm gonna try and just get onto one, just try and cling on to some positives because I think there was positives. I mean, you're 3-0 down and you end up scoring a third goal in the 90, what was it, third minute? Like that's a positive. So I think one thing for sure is you guys said it. The fight we showed, especially against Man United and now against Liverpool at Anfield, uh, it was incredible. I think that the boys are getting behind something, and that's something that I've missed. It's giving me performances to be proud of. It's giving me a manager I can back. I can still stand behind Mason. We lost this game. We even shared the points, and we shouldn't have shared the points against Man United. But the performance that was on the pitch, like against Conte, we'd be squeezing results out, and sometimes even getting these draws that we didn't deserve a lot of the time. We're just playing football that none of us wanted to watch. But here, we're at least playing in a way, in a fashion, and with a style, and with a commitment, and with a fight that I can get behind, and that's something that at least I can look forward to every week, even when stuff like this happens. Another thing I want to get onto is Mason deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. I think he surprised a lot of us. And like Sim said, yeah, maybe he does need to take a little bit of responsibility so he can take the credit. But as you said, Ben, like this stuff has been happening under like 4 coaches, 5 coaches in a row now. These bad starts. It started all the way back from Pochettino because it's the same personnel on the back. It's the same personnel on the back. I love Davies. I love Davies. You guys ever noticed? But Davies is still here under. He was there under Pochettino. He's still here under Ryan Mason. 2 Ryan Masons have gone by, and we still have Eric Dyer in center back, right? Like this stuff is ridiculous. This shouldn't be happening in any serious club, and that's why we're going, 6-1, 5 goals down in 20 minutes, 3 goals down in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and 1 goal down in 6 minutes. Like this is ridiculous. At any serious club, you don't have the same center back that's now made 10 goals in 3 games have gone past them. That's a joke, and we have to keep playing him. Why? Because our other options are miraculously even worse. So there's that, and the personnel because of that personnel, you have these problems. But I think the way Ryan approaches games and he makes changes, that's something I've just been dying to see. Like he changed the stuff that doesn't work. He brought on Sar to change up the system a little bit. He brought on someone, Danjuma and unfortunately Lucas to just throw the kitchen sink at Liverpool. Ended up working before backfiring weirdly. So we have to give Mason a little bit of credit too because I think he surprised us a lot. And maybe there's something in there, maybe not necessarily right now, but if he can go get some experience at a higher up championship club or a lower Premier League club next season or 2 seasons from now or something, or maybe even get a little bit of experience under Nagelsmann or some other coach we end up getting. That would be, I think we have someone on our hands that clearly he's not tactically clueless. Like that's one thing I think last time out, people were saying, oh, he just plays his mates and he just, copies Jose's tactics and he's clueless in game. But I think he's shown today that he's not necessarily tactically clueless. He has ideas and he has ways to implement them, and he can motivate the players. So that's one thing that I want to comment on. I think he's done an excellent job.
What would you say to Klopp's comments after the game, saying that he was asked why they had so much difficulty holding on to the lead today, and he said the difficulty with Tottenham is that they don't change whatever happens in the game, and he said even when they were 3-0 down, we still kept counter attacking, and when Liverpool kind of expected them to maybe throw caution to the wind and come out of their shell a bit, they still kept to their plan of counter-attacking, and that gave us some trouble because all of a sudden they started getting complacent and Tottenham's counter-attack started to pay dividends kind of during that period. Do you agree with that assessment of the game, that the problem that Tottenham just didn't change throughout the game and stuck to their plan?
And that's a load of nonsense. I don't even know where he's getting that from. What do you mean? We struggled because you didn't change your plan. That we ended up crushing you with 20 minutes. That makes no sense to me. That just. And he made some other comments. And one thing I want to say is, Klopp is the most classless coach in the Premier League. Maybe behind the guy that's playing a rapist every week. But he is so ridiculous, especially in press conferences. If he loses, he complains. If he wins, he complains. He throws shade at everybody. It's completely classless. But I don't understand what his comment means there, because the first goal did come from not really even a counterattack. Really, I mean, no, the first goal was a counterattack. Second goal was a fantastic pass from Romero. It was nothing like a counterattack. Third goal was a set piece. So I don't understand what anything counterattack related is, barring the first goal, which Van Dijk just got absolutely cooked for by a 34-year-old
Mm-hmm.
Perisic. Um, So I don't understand what his assessment of the game means. If this is a Premier League coach, I mean, I think he just plays dumb. And again, it goes back to him being classless. It makes no sense. I don't understand why he does it, and it assessed me. And one other thing I want to talk about is, um, again, Spurs have nobody to blame except for themselves and Lucas Moura. But what happened with the refereeing performance this game was nothing short of shocking. Absolutely disgraceful refereeing performance. I have never in my life seen a more clear red card than what happened to Oliver Skipp today. I just genuinely, I've never seen a red card that's more clear. And the irony is, if that's his hand, it's a red card. That's what's even crazier. If that's Jota's hand instead of his stud, it's a red card. So I don't understand what rule in any rule book in the universe says that's not a red card. I just don't get it. He's hurt physically. He's literally bleeding.
He had
High
to come
kick,
off. He had to
studs
come
up.
off.
He had to, and you know, I just don't understand in what universe that's not a red card. And this happens every single year at Anfield. Every single year, there's some ridiculous refereeing decision at Anfield. And I've said this before, maybe not on this channel, but I've said I think the real reason that the Anfield juju exists isn't because of some random, mythical curse. I swear to God, it's just you have the referee's least favorite team against the referee's favorite team. And it always should. That's always the difference. One goal, one goal, one goal. If Gakpo's penalty, it was a penalty, by the way. But I swear, if that happens to us, I don't even think it gets given. Because with Richarlison's penalty shout again, so many
That
things
was a
happen to
penalty.
us at Anfield that I just you swap the shirts and it's always a different scenario. It just always gets on my nerves. Something ridiculous always happens. So again, I don't want to blame the referee for what happened because going 3-0 down and like literally all 4 goals were Spurs doing. Every single goal was because Spurs did something stupid. So I don't want to say the referee is the reason we lost because they're not. But that refereeing performance was nothing short of absolutely shocking. They did not get really anything right at all. And they even like when they checked Højbjerg's tackle on Elliott in like the corner flag, I was like, "Are you kidding me? What are you checking?" It's the most perfect tackle right in front of the referee's eyes. Gets nothing but the ball. Maybe catches him a little bit on his toe, and they consider checking that for a red card for serious foul play. Are you kidding me? It was an absolutely disgraceful refereeing performance
Arian,
as well.
you can kind of excuse the kind of on-field decision because it's something that happens in a split second. But how the guys in the VAR room do not pull that back or do not say go and check it or something is absolutely mental to me. But there was another challenge in the first half by Ollie Skipp, studs up on the ankle. Do you think that was a sending off?
I saw it, and in the moment I thought it could have been a sending off, especially because they replayed it in slow motion. But I don't think it was high enough on like people are making out like it was like Lucas's challenge against Everton. That one was a red card, and I think I said it. But I don't think this one was really similar because he came in going for the ball and he didn't like it wasn't a studs up challenge. What he did was he went for the ball, and you have to flex your feet up a little bit, but it wasn't like a studs up challenge on his ankle. I don't think that was a red card. And Robertson did exactly that against Tanganga 2 years ago, and I remember it because it pissed me off, and that wasn't given as a red card. So if that's not given a red card, then it shouldn't be given a red card now. So Liverpool fans have nothing to complain about.
I want to ask you about Porro, Arian, because we kind of saw both sides to Porro today, didn't we? First half, he was just all at sea at the back, like we've seen a lot of the time. But actually, in the second half, to his credit, when as Spurs got better, he grew in influence, didn't he? And he started to really dominate that right-hand side, I felt, and really was causing problems for Liverpool. And that makes it all the more frustrating that Lucas came on for him, so there was no need for it. But do you think, like, we saw maybe what Porro can give us? Because a lot of people have been criticising him, and look, rightly so with his defending, but maybe he doesn't get the credit for what he can bring for us going forward.
Yeah, especially shots from the
think,
halfway line.
Yeah, I think he got a first shot on target, didn't he? But here's the thing with Porro. I think I get what you mean with the criticism being valid, and it is to his defending. But like this is exactly the Pedro Porro that we signed. I think some people are forgetting. Like Pedro Porro has never been defensively solid. Like even the last game he played before we signed him, he ended up. He was the reason that Benfica conceded, or not Benfica, sorry, Sporting conceded
yeah.
a equalizer, but then he actually went on to score a penalty like right in like 4 minutes right afterwards. This is the same Pedro Porro. He has not dipped in form. He is a offensive wingback that is more similar in nature to a winger than a defender. we have the opposite. His name is Emerson Royale, and we get frustrated with both of them. You cannot have. It's very rare you have someone that can do the best of both worlds, because there's also a defensive risk that is associated with with attacking, and that is often why Pedro Porro gets exposed. Maybe not for the first goal; he was just doing poor marking, but we signed a player that is offensive, and the way you operate in a back three with wing backs that are this like offensively talented is you don't berate them for their defending. You sign defenders that can cover for them and let them use their talent going forward. So
Absolutely.
I've seen people who at halftime I saw people say sell Romero and sell Pedro Porro on my time, and I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because we've seen the side of Pedro Porro that is magnificent going forward, and we've seen the side of Romero that is also is magnificent both in our defensive half and in the offensive half today with the pass to Son. Has he made mistakes? Absolutely, but he has to cover for donkeys like Dyer and unfortunately today a little bit Davies. And I improved the second half, but first half he's absolutely shocking. And it's like Vertonghen when he was first at the club. Until Toby came, Vertonghen was fucking useless.
Yeah.
Maybe not useless, but again, same
No,
thing
he
with
was
Romero.
poor,
Like
you're right.
you need, yeah, you need players around quality players. You just can't have one quality player and expect him to lift the whole back line, especially when he's the only capable center back. It's ridiculous that people are calling for him to get sold or for Porro to get sold. Like you can't, you can't pick out the good players and lump them in with the bad players, because a back line, it's not like the thing people don't realize, it is very rare that the back line functions the same way as the front line, because in the front line you can have a moment of brilliance, you can dribble through a whole team and score, you can score an absolute worldie. You can't defend a 3-on-1 one person at a time. You just can't do it. And you have one competent center back trying to get 3-4 players, because Dyer is useless. Davies was absolutely shocking in the first 20 minutes. And yeah, Romero made a mistake. He made a poor pass, and then like 5 minutes later, he ended up conceding a penalty. Everybody makes mistakes. He got yellow cards, he got red cards for us. He makes mistakes, but you have to remember he's covering for literally 2 other people's jobs at the back. To criticize him and say he's part of the problem is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the second half in this game and the second half in the Manchester United game, we've probably got more to be proud about in those 2 games than we have done for the last couple of months being a Spurs fan.
Yeah,
Ryan
sure.
Mason in charge. With Ryan Mason, is there any sort of opportunity in your mind that he is putting himself in the conversation to be permanent manager?
I will absolutely shamelessly say 100% he is putting himself in that conversation. Am I going to take him over Nagelsmann? No, because I think Nagelsmann is a generational once in a generation coach. Am I taking him over maybe someone like a Postecoglou or even a Slot? Or personally, I just hate Enrique, so I'm not going to name him, but I would take him over Enrique, but just because I hate Enrique. So you have these coaches' names, and I think there's a value to Mason being so connected to the club, and the main concern everyone had with Mason, like I think he showed this in his first stint, really is he did this in the first stint where we actually started games poorly last time too, and at halftime we came back. Southampton, I remember especially, halftime we went 1-0 down, and at halftime we came back and we ended up winning the game 2-1 in the end. And everyone was saying like he's able to motivate the players because he feels the connection to the club that the fans do and the players should. But people like Conte or people like Mourinho don't necessarily have that same connection. And I think that is a side of him that we've known existed. But a lot of people had the concern that he was just a tactically clueless manager. Like just he's kind of riding along using his like aura or something just to get by. And I think that was a bit of a more fair criticism the first time out, because he wasn't as well-rounded as he is now. He's got a couple more years under some of the best managers the sport has ever seen. So I think you can tell that he's kind of getting a hold of these ideas a little bit more. And because of that, I think maybe it's a little bit too soon now, but especially if we're going to go in the direction of getting rid of Son and Kane and building around a young team, I wouldn't, like I said, I would take Nagelsmann over him because he's a generational coach. But Ryan Mason, I think, has the connection, and I think now he's beginning to acquire the tools to be able to guide Spurs somewhere. I think ideally what we would do is we would at least get Nagelsmann and send Mason off to another club to get his own experience, or even honestly, I wouldn't mind if Mason stays as assistant again and gets a little more experience that way. But I think he's on the verge of being experienced enough for me to be able to trust him, because he's shown that he's able to change things tactically, not just motivationally at halftime. Because we in his first thing completely were hanging on to that halftime team talk. That's all we had. Every time we look bad, if we didn't look better at halftime, the game was over. We saw that against Leeds. But I think this time, even in like the 40th minute or in the 60th minute, you see Son going around whispering in Sarr's ear. He's making tactical changes, and they paid off. They did pay off. And unfortunately, Lucas had to ruin all of it in the end. But I think he's shown in the last 2 games that he's able to change things in a football way, not in just a human way that he was able to do last time. So I think he's beginning to shape himself as a coach, and he's getting a philosophy. You can tell he likes to go forward. He likes to play the Tottenham way, and we can get behind that.
Yeah, so Arian, you say that he's tactically obviously a lot better than we all gave him credit for. He knows how to motivate the players. So why do you think he's not ready?
It's not that I think he's not ready. It's that I think I really only would take Nagelsmann over him, because Nagelsmann is just. I put Nagelsmann in the pinnacle of coach's quality. I mean, you're talking about a guy who took a 5th-tier team to the Champions League. Nagelsmann is just one of those coaches you just see once in a lifetime. He's a magnificent coach. That's really the only reason I pass up Mason. But if Nagelsmann says no, and Spurs announce tomorrow that they're going to give it to Mason permanently, I would 100% be behind it. Because also one thing about Mason, that if we're struggling or if we're doing poorly, I think there's a value that his connection to the club has that I think people dismiss, because that he loves the club, that he's committed to the club, and that was always a problem with Conte. You never know. He's a mercenary. Is he going to dip next year? Is he going to just throw everyone under the bus? And he ended up doing it towards the end. But with Mason, that's never a concern. You're always free thinking you can just be behind the coach. And if we lose 3 or 4 games in a row under Conte, that builds pressure, that builds anger, and Conte starts slamming out at the club, slamming out at the players. But if we lose 4 or 5 games under Mason, or we play poorly, I can still get behind it, because I know, I think the connection he has to the club is a little bit similar to Poch. You can get behind a manager who has a connection. You can still back him because you feel like he's in the same boat as you. But necessarily with Mourinho and with Conte, sometimes it feels like they're not in the same boat as you. It feels like they're kind of riding their own ship. But as long as I feel like Mason is someone that we can trust, he's going to build with us. And yeah, that's really it. I would absolutely take him. I think he has shown that he is ready, if we decide to trust him, and I trust him. But there's just the only roadblock is just I think Nagelsmann is just such a fantastic opportunity that if you have the opportunity to get Nagelsmann, you don't say no. That's really just the way I look at it.